Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a foundational truth that governs every human life, whether they acknowledge it or not. Life is not governed by circumstances. Life is governed by laws. And one of the most powerful laws that governs human existence is this: your life moves in the direction of the questions you ask and the answers you accept. Write that down. Your life does not respond to wishes, prayers, or desires first. It responds to belief. And belief is formed by answers. Answers to questions you asked or questions you avoided. The greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy in life is living and never understanding why you are alive. And I submit to you today that most people are not failing because they lack ability. They are failing because they are answering the wrong questions, or worse, they are living with unanswered ones. You don't wake up confused by accident. Confusion is the product of unanswered questions. And confusion always produces misdirection. Let me say this very carefully. Behavior is not the problem of humanity, belief is. You do not behave first, you believe first. You do not act randomly, you act according to conclusions you have drawn about yourself, about life, and about God. Proverbs chapter 23 verse 7 says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It does not say as a man behaves, it says as a man thinks. In other words, life follows thought, not effort. Now here's where we must slow down and think. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change behavior without ever changing belief. They join churches, attend seminars, read books, fast and pray, but they never confront the core assumptions that govern their lives. And those assumptions are formed by answers to questions. Write this down. Questions determine focus. Focus determines decisions, and decisions determine destiny. If I want to change your life, I don't start with your habits. I start with your questions. Because if your questions are wrong, your answers will be wrong. And if your answers are wrong, your life will be wrong, even if you are sincere. Hosea 4:6 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not for lack of prayer, not for lack of fasting, not for lack of church attendance. Knowledge, understanding, truth, answers. Now listen to me carefully. You are not where you are in life because of what happened to you. You are where you are because of what you believe about you. Some of you have blamed your parents, blamed your past, blamed your race, blamed your economy, blamed your government, blamed your church. But the greatest influence on your life is not what happened to you. It is what you concluded from what happened to you. Two people can experience the same event and end up in completely different places. Why? Because they answered different questions. Jesus understood this principle perfectly. That is why he never started by fixing people's circumstances. He started by challenging their thinking. He said, you have heard it said, but I say unto you. In other words, you have accepted an answer that is inferior to truth. And until that answer changes, your life will not change. Romans 12:2 confirms this when it says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation does not begin in your environment, it begins in your mind. Now, here is the danger. If you do not answer life's questions intentionally, culture will answer them for you. Society is always ready to give you an identity, define your value, tell you your limits, and assign your destination. And most people accept those definitions without ever questioning their source. That is why Jesus asks questions constantly. He asked more questions than he answered. Why? Because he understood that whoever controls the questions controls the direction of the conversation. And whoever controls the direction of the conversation controls the outcome. When Jesus asked his disciples in Matthew 16, who do men say that I am? He was not interested in public opinion. He was exposing the danger of borrowed answers. And then he asked the most important question of all, but who do you say that I am? In other words, what answer are you living by? Because your life will respond to your answer, not to truth alone. Let me make this very plain. You can be surrounded by truth and still live a lie if you accept the wrong answer. You can sit in a room full of revelation and still walk in darkness if you refuse to confront your assumptions. That is why Jesus said in John 8:32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. He did not say the truth shall exist. He said the truth, you know the truth, you accept the truth, you answer with that truth, has power. Now please hear me. Every human being is subconsciously trying to answer the same fundamental questions. These questions are not religious. They are human. They are not cultural. They are universal. And until you answer them correctly, your life will always feel incomplete no matter how successful you appear. That is why people with money are depressed. People with degrees are confused. And people with influence feel empty. They achieve success without understanding significance. Let me say this again because it is critical. Success without clarity is frustration. You can climb the ladder and still discover it is leaning against the wrong wall. And when you reach the top, you don't celebrate, you panic. Because achievement without purpose is exhaustion. Ecclesiastes 1:14 says, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Why? Because activity without meaning drains the soul. So today, I am not here to motivate you. Motivation is temporary. I am here to realign your thinking. I am here to confront the questions you have been avoiding. Because once the questions are answered correctly, life becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Confusion leaves. Direction emerges. Peace replaces anxiety, and clarity becomes your companion. Write this down and never forget it. Your destiny is not hidden from you. It is hidden in you. And it can only be unlocked by the right questions. When you ask the right questions, heaven responds. James 1:5 says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. God is not hiding answers from you. He is waiting for you to ask the right questions. This brings us now to the foundation of everything I will teach you. There are 5 questions that control the entire human race. Every human struggle, every personal crisis, every societal breakdown can be traced back to confusion in one or more of these questions. And until you answer them in the correct order, you will always feel like something is missing, even when everything seems present. Now, having established that life is governed by questions, we must confront a disturbing reality. Most people on this planet never truly control their own lives. They exist, they survive, they function, but they do not govern. They wake up every morning reacting instead of ruling, responding instead of directing, surviving instead of designing. And the reason is not a lack of intelligence. It is not a lack of opportunity. It is not even a lack of prayer. The reason is simple and tragic. They surrendered the responsibility of answering life's questions to someone else. Write this down carefully. Whoever answers your questions controls your life. If your parents answered them for you, they control your life. If your culture answered them for you, your culture controls your life. If your teachers, your church, your friends, or your fears answered them for you, then those forces are governing your destiny. And many people are deeply religious, yet completely governed by opinions that God never authorized. Most people do not live intentionally. They live by default. They wake up, go where they are told, do what they are trained to do, think what they are rewarded for thinking, and believe what they are conditioned to believe, and they call that life. But that is not life, that is programming. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Vision does not mean imagination. Vision means clarity. It means seeing correctly. And when you cannot see correctly, you cannot lead yourself. Let me say something that may disturb you, but it is necessary. Busyness is not progress. Activity is not purpose. Productivity is not destiny. Many people are busy all day doing things that have nothing to do with why they were born. And because they are busy, they feel important. But importance is not measured by motion. It is measured by meaning. Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us, to everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under heaven. Not everything you can do is what you are supposed to do. One of the greatest deceptions of modern life is success without self-understanding. You can be promoted and still be misplaced. You can be applauded and still be misaligned. You can be wealthy and still be empty. Jesus warned about this when he said in Mark 8:36, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? In other words, what is the value of achievement if it costs you yourself? Most people never control their lives because they confuse motion with direction. They assume that because they are moving, they are progressing. But movement without direction is wandering. And wandering always produces fatigue. That is why people are tired even when they're not doing anything physically demanding. They are tired because they're living against design. Isaiah 40:31 says, "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." Waiting does not mean inactivity, it means alignment. When you align with purpose, strength returns. Now here is another reason people never govern their lives. They are afraid of responsibility. When you answer life's questions correctly, you become accountable for your life. You can no longer blame anyone. And many people prefer comfort over control. It is easier to say, "They told me to do this," than to say, "I chose this." But maturity demands ownership. Genesis 1:26 says, "Let us make man in our image and let them have dominion." Dominion requires decision, and decision requires courage. Let me be very clear. God will not control your life for you. He gave you dominion, not dictatorship. He gave you authority, not automation. Deuteronomy 30:19 says, "I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life." Notice, God does not choose for you. He presents options. Choice is the evidence of dignity. And when you refuse to choose, you choose by default. Another reason people never control their lives is because they mistake approval for purpose. They live for applause. They chase validation. They make decisions based on acceptance rather than assignment. Jesus confronted this when he said in John 5:44, "How can you believe which receive honor one of another and seek not the honor that cometh from God only?" When people's opinions matter more than God's design, destiny becomes negotiable. Many people never ask the hard questions because they are afraid of the answers. They know that if they discover who they really are, they may have to change where they are. They may have to leave environments that are comfortable but limiting. They may have to disappoint people who benefit from their confusion. And so they stay busy, they stay distracted, they stay entertained, but they never become free. John 10:10 says, "I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." Abundant life is not more things, it is more alignment. Let me say this slowly. You cannot control what you do not understand. That is why ignorance is dangerous, not because it makes you sinful, but because it makes you manageable. When you don't understand who you are, others will define you. When you don't understand why you are here, others will use you. When you don't understand your potential, others will exploit you. And when you don't understand your destination, others will redirect you. This is why Jesus never tried to reform society before reforming minds. He said, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Repent does not mean cry. It means change your mind. Change how you think. Change how you see. Change how you answer. Because when your mind changes, your life follows. So until you take responsibility for answering life's fundamental questions, you will remain a passenger in your own existence. You will live responding to schedules, demands, expectations, and emergencies, but never purpose. And God did not create you to survive systems. He created you to govern territory. Now that we understand why most people never control their lives, we are ready to confront the framework that governs all human existence. Because once you understand the questions, you can begin to reclaim authority over your life. Now listen very carefully, because what I am about to share with you is not philosophy, it is not psychology, and it is not religion. It is reality. I have studied humanity long enough to discover that every human being, regardless of race, culture, education, or religion, is subconsciously trying to answer the same fundamental questions. These questions govern every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every career you choose, and every frustration you experience. I have reduced the entire human struggle to 5 questions. Write them down. If you do not write them down, you will forget them. And if you forget them, you will repeat the same life you are living now. These 5 questions are not optional. You don't get to escape them. If you don't answer them consciously, they will be answered unconsciously. And whatever answers you live by will determine the quality and direction of your life. These 5 questions control the human race. They control governments, economies, families, marriages, and individual destinies. Every crime in your city can be traced back to confusion in one of these questions. Every broken home, every addiction, every identity crisis, every suicide note. These 5 questions sit behind all human behavior. Let me say this plainly. Human behavior is an attempt to answer unanswered questions. When people don't know who they are, they behave recklessly. When they don't know why they are here, they waste time. When they don't know what they can do, they settle for mediocrity. When they don't know where they are going, they wonder. And wondering always produces frustration. Now here are the 5 questions. Write them exactly as I give them to you because the order matters. Number 1, who am I? This is the question of identity. It is the most frightening question a human can ask, and that is why most people never ask it. Identity answers the question of self-worth, value, and meaning. Until this question is answered, a person will always imitate others. They will borrow styles, borrow opinions, borrow beliefs, and borrow confidence. And borrowed identity always collapses under pressure. Number 2, where am I from? This is the question of source or origin. This question has nothing to do with geography, ethnicity, or nationality. It has everything to do with design. You cannot know what something is until you know who made it. And you cannot know why it exists until you understand the intent of its maker. Jeremiah 1-5 says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That means your origin predates your parents. Your parents were conduits, not creators. Number 3, why am I here? This is the question of purpose. Purpose is the reason for existence. It is not something you choose, it is something you discover. Purpose is not invented by the product, it is assigned by the manufacturer. And the tragedy of life is not failing to achieve success, but succeeding at something that has nothing to do with why you were born. Jesus said in John 18:37, for this cause came I into the world. He knew why he was here. That knowledge gave him focus, courage, and restraint. Number 4, what can I do? This is the question of potential. Potential answers the question of ability, capacity, and hidden power. Most people live far below their true capacity because they let systems, tests, and opinions define their limits. But potential is never determined by environment, it is determined by design. Ecclesiastes 7:29 says, God made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. In other words, you were created complete, but culture taught you to doubt yourself. Number 5, where am I going? This is the question of destiny. Destiny is not where you hope to end up. It is where you were designed to arrive. Destiny is the full manifestation of purpose over time. And if you do not know where you are going, you will accept any road that appears convenient. Proverbs 16:9 says, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Direction assumes destination. Now, notice something very important. These questions are not independent. They are interconnected. You cannot answer number 3 without answering number 2. You cannot answer number 4 without answering number 1. And you cannot answer number 5 without answering all the others. This is why many people feel stuck. They are trying to answer destiny questions with identity confusion. They are trying to plan futures without understanding purpose, and the result is frustration. Let me say this again because it is critical. You cannot skip questions in life. Life is designed to be lived in order. When you violate order, you invite chaos. 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, God is not the author of confusion. Confusion is evidence that order has been violated. And when your life feels confusing, it is not because God is silent, it is because you are out of sequence. Jesus never lived a confused life because he answered these questions early. At 12 years old, he said, did you not know that I must be about my Father's business, identity, source, purpose? All in one sentence. That clarity protected him from distraction, temptation, and delay. When Satan tempted him in the wilderness, Jesus did not argue, he answered from identity. It is written, when you know who you are, temptation loses its power. So what I am about to do with you in this teaching is not inspire you, it is confront you. Because once you understand these 5 questions, you can never go back to ignorance. Responsibility will follow revelation. And from this moment forward, you will begin to recognize why certain things no longer satisfy you, why certain environments frustrate you, and why your spirit has been restless. Your spirit is not restless because you need more things. It is restless because it wants answers. And the good news is this: God is not afraid of your questions. He designed you to ask them. But he also designed them to be answered in the right order, from the right source, and with the right understanding. Psalm 119 to 130 says, the entrance of thy words giveth light. It giveth understanding unto the simple. Light brings clarity, and clarity restores control. Now that we have laid the framework, we are ready to deal with the most foundational question of all, the question that shapes every other answer you will ever give. Now we come to the most critical question a human being will ever face. This question sits at the root of every other question, and until it is answered correctly, nothing else will ever function properly. The question is simple, but it is terrifying. Who am I? Write it down. Do not rush past it. This is not a casual question. This is the question of identity, and identity is the foundation of destiny. Identity answers the question of value. Identity answers the question of worth. Identity answers the question of significance. Until you know who you are, you will never know what you are worth. And until you know what you are worth, you will allow people to treat you any way they choose. That is why identity confusion always produces abuse, self-abuse, or abuse from others. When value is unclear, misuse is inevitable. Now let me make this statement very clear. Identity is not what you do. What you do is your function, not your identity. You are not your job. You are not your title. You are not your role. You are not your position. Those are functions you perform, not definitions of who you are. When people lose their jobs and lose their sense of self, it proves they never knew who they were in the first place. They confuse function with identity. Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 tells us, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Notice God did not say, let us make man to do. He said, let us make man to be. Being comes before doing. Identity comes before assignment. And when you reverse that order, you create insecurity. You start trying to prove yourself instead of express yourself. And anything you have to prove, you will eventually lose. The average human being is still struggling with identity. That is why imitation dominates our culture. People dress like other people, talk like other people, think like other people, dream like other people. They borrow confidence, borrow styles, borrow attitudes, borrow ambitions. But borrowed identity has an expiration date. When pressure comes, imitation collapses. Romans 8:19 says, for the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. Notice creation is not waiting for copies. It is waiting for originals. Let me say something strong but true. The fashion industry is built on identity confusion. Advertising is fueled by insecurity. Marketing succeeds when people don't know who they are. When you are secure in your identity, you are not easily manipulated. That is why Satan attacked identity first in the garden. He did not question Adam's environment. He questioned Adam's identity. If you eat this, you shall be like God. In other words, you are not enough as you are. And the moment Adam believed that lie, humanity lost clarity. Identity confusion always produces comparison. When you don't know who you are, you measure yourself against others. And comparison is a dangerous game. Because there will always be someone who appears better than you at something. Galatians 6:4 says, let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. When identity is secure, comparison loses its power. Now listen to this carefully. Identity does not come from society, culture, parents, education, or experience. Identity comes from origin. A product never defines itself. A product never names itself. A product never determines its own value. Only the manufacturer can do that. And if you allow people who did not make you to define you, you will live beneath your design. Psalm 100 verse 3 says, know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. You did not invent you. This is why Jesus never struggled with insecurity. Before he ever performed the miracle, before he ever preached a sermon, before he ever healed the sick, God spoke from heaven and said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Identity was established before activity. Approval preceded performance. And when Satan tempted Jesus, he began with the same attack used in Eden. If you are the Son of God. Satan always attacks identity first, because if he can confuse who you are, he can control what you do. Many of you are exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because you are trying to be someone you are not. You are living beneath an image that is not yours. You are chasing approval from people who don't know who you are. And God is saying to you today what he said through Isaiah 43:1. Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. Thou art mine. Identity is established by ownership. You belong to God. That is not religion. That is identity. Let me say this slowly so it settles in your spirit. When you discover who you are, you stop trying to impress people. You stop performing for applause. You stop begging for validation. You stop explaining yourself to critics. You stop apologizing for being different. Because difference is not a flaw, it is proof of design. Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are his workmanship. The word workmanship means masterpiece. God does not mass produce humans, he custom designs them. Identity is not something you create, it is something you uncover. And the reason many people never uncover it is because they're afraid of responsibility. When you know who you are, excuses die, blame dies, victimhood dies, because identity brings accountability. That is why many people prefer confusion. It gives them permission to avoid responsibility. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly, even if you don't say it out loud. Who told you who you are? Was it God or was it an event? Was it truth or was it trauma? Was it your creator or was it a critic? Because whatever answered that question for you is governing your life right now. Until you answer who am I correctly, the next questions will only confuse you. Purpose will frustrate you. Potential will intimidate you. Destiny will scare you. But when identity is clear, everything else begins to align. You stop chasing life, and life begins to respond to you. And this brings us naturally to the next question, because once identity is established, there is another question that must be answered, or identity will remain incomplete. Now that identity has been confronted, we must move to the next unavoidable question, because identity without origin is incomplete. The question is this: where am I from? Write it down. This is not a question of geography. It is not a question of race, nationality, or culture. This is the question of source. And source determines authority, value, function, and limits. Until you know where you are from, you will never fully understand who you are. Let me say this very clearly. You cannot know a product by studying the product alone. You must study the manufacturer. Every product is designed with intent, built with purpose, and sustained by its source. Remove the product from its source and it begins to malfunction. That is why Jesus said in John 15:5, I am the vine, ye are the branches. Without me, ye can do nothing. Nothing does not mean inactivity. It means nothing of eternal value. Disconnection always leads to dysfunction. Now here is where many people get confused. When you ask them, where are you from? They say, I'm from Africa, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from America, I'm from Europe. That is not your source. That is your location. Location is not origin. Your parents are not your source. They are your channel. They did not design you, they delivered you. Psalm 127:3 says, children are an heritage of the Lord. Heritage means ownership. God claims responsibility for your existence. Jeremiah 1:5 makes this undeniable when God says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Notice the order. Knowing preceded forming. Forming preceded birth. Birth preceded environment. That means your source predates time, culture, and circumstance. You existed in the mind of God before you ever appeared in the body of your mother. Therefore, your true origin is not earth, it is heaven. You were sent here. You were not produced here. This is why Jesus could speak with authority on earth. He knew where he was from. He said in John 8:23, ye are from beneath, I am from above. In other words, your thinking is limited by earth because you believe you came from earth. My thinking is unlimited because I know I came from heaven. When you know your source, you stop thinking like a victim of circumstances and start thinking like an ambassador on assignment. Let me introduce a principle that will change how you see yourself forever. A product can never rise above its source. If your source is dirt, then dirt defines your limits. But if your source is God, then heaven defines your potential. Genesis 2:7 says God formed man from the dust, but he did not leave him there. He breathed into him the breath of life. Dust gave him body, but breath gave him being. Your body came from earth, but your spirit came from God. Ecclesiastes 12:7 confirms it. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. This is why you are never satisfied with earth alone. You can accumulate things and still feel empty. You can achieve goals and still feel restless. You can travel the world and still feel homesick. Why? Because you are living away from your source. Fish are not evil on land. They are just misplaced. And many people are not sinful. They are disconnected. They are trying to live spiritual lives with earthly definitions. Now watch this carefully. If you don't know where you are from, you will let the environment redefine you. You will let pain rename you. You will let trauma reassign you. You will let systems label you. You will, and once a label is accepted, it becomes a ceiling. That is why God constantly reminded Israel, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. He was not rehearsing history. He was restoring identity through source. He was saying, you don't belong to Pharaoh. You don't belong to slavery. You don't belong to Egypt. You belong to me. Let me say this plainly. Whoever owns the source controls the supply. When you forget your source, you start chasing resources. When you remember your source, resources start chasing you. Philippians 4:19 says, my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory. Notice the supply is not according to your job, your government, or your economy. It is according to his riches. Source determines supply. This is why prayer is powerful, not because it changes God, but because it reconnects you to source. This is why worship restores strength, not because God needs praise, but because praise reorients your awareness. Isaiah 40:31 says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Renew means exchange. You exchange your weakness for his strength when you reconnect to source. Now listen to this carefully, because this is critical. Identity answers who you are. Source answers whose you are. And when you know whose you are, fear loses its grip. Anxiety loses its authority. Insecurity loses its voice. Romans 8:15 says, you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. Adoption is a declaration of source. It is God saying, you are from me. So let me ask you again, where are you from? Not what country, what kingdom, not what culture, what creator. Because until you answer that correctly, purpose will confuse you. You will try to discover why you are here without knowing who sent you. And no one can understand an assignment without knowing the assigner. Which brings us naturally to the most searched question of the human heart. The question that sits at the center of every midlife crisis, every burnout, every quiet despair. Once you know who you are and where you are from, there is only one question left that your spirit demands an answer to. Now we arrive at the question that haunts every human heart. The question behind every frustration, every burnout, every sense of emptiness that success cannot cure. Once you know who you are and where you are from, your spirit immediately cries out, why am I here? Write it down. This is the question of purpose. And purpose is the most important discovery of your life. Purpose is not what you want to do. Purpose is not what you like to do. Purpose is not what makes money. Purpose is the original intent of the creator for the existence of the product. And until you discover purpose, life will never make sense, no matter how long you live it. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a man's heart, nevertheless the Lord's purpose that shall stand. You can have many plans, but only one purpose. And purpose always outlives plans. Let me say this clearly and without apology. You were not born to find your purpose. You were born with your purpose. Purpose is not something you create along the way. Purpose existed before you arrived. Purpose is older than you. Purpose is the reason you were sent to earth in the first place. That is why Jeremiah 1-5 says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you and I ordained you. Ordination came before formation. Assignment came before anatomy. This is where most people make a tragic mistake. They spend their entire lives asking, what do I want to do with my life? Instead of asking, why did God send me here? And when you ask the wrong question, you will always get the wrong answer. A product does not decide its purpose. Imagine a microphone saying, I think I want to be a hammer. That microphone can hit something, but it will never fulfill its design. Purpose is not chosen by preference. It is discovered by revelation. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts. That means God placed purpose awareness inside of you. That restlessness you feel is not rebellion, it is remembrance. Your spirit remembers that you were sent for something more. And when purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. You abuse time, abuse relationships, abuse your body, abuse opportunities, not because you are evil, but because you are ignorant of purpose. Let me make this statement very strong. The greatest enemy of purpose is not sin, it is distraction. Satan does not need to destroy you if he can keep you busy doing something other than what you were born to do. That is why many people are doing good things, but not the right thing. And the enemy of right is not wrong, the enemy of right is good. Luke 10 tells us that Martha was busy serving while Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet. And she said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things. But one thing is needed. Many things can be good. Only one thing is necessary. Purpose simplifies life. When you know why you are here, decisions become easier. Distractions lose their appeal. Temptations lose their strength. Peer pressure loses its power. Jesus lived 33 years. But he never rushed. He never panicked. He never competed. Why? Because he knew why he was here. John 18:37 records Jesus saying, for this cause I was born, and for this cause I came into the world. When you know your cause, confusion dies. Now let me address a dangerous myth. Many people believe purpose is something spiritual that has nothing to do with everyday life. They think purpose means preaching, singing, or standing behind a pulpit. That is religious thinking, not kingdom thinking. Purpose is not about church activity. It is about earthly assignment. God created earth to extend his invisible kingdom into the visible world. Genesis 1:28 says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion. That is purpose. To rule earth on God's behalf. Purpose is always connected to problem solving. Wherever God places you, he expects you to bring order, value, and improvement. That is why purpose is discovered where your passion meets a problem. You were designed to solve something. You were sent to fix something. And until you find what that is, your life will feel incomplete. Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Prepared beforehand means the work existed before you did. Now hear this carefully. Purpose is the key to fulfillment, not happiness. Happiness depends on circumstances. Fulfillment depends on alignment. You can be unhappy and fulfilled, but you can never be fulfilled and miserable for long. Fulfillment produces peace, even in adversity. That is why Jesus could endure the cross. Hebrews 12:2 says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. He saw the purpose beyond the pain. Many of you are frustrated, not because life is hard, but because you are misaligned. You are doing something that pays you, but does not fulfill you. You are surviving, but you are not satisfied. And God is saying to you today, I did not send you to earth to just make a living. I sent you to make a difference. Acts 13:36 says, David, after he had served God's purpose in his own generation, fell asleep. Notice he served purpose, then he rested. Death is peaceful when purpose is complete. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to let it search your heart. If money were not an issue and fear were removed, what would you spend your life doing? That question points toward purpose. Purpose always outlives paychecks. Purpose survives retirement. Purpose keeps you awake at night and energized in the morning. Purpose refuses to die even when you try to ignore it. And here is the good news. You do not need to invent your purpose. You need to return to your source and ask the manufacturer. Psalm 16:11 says, you will show me the path of life. God does not hide purpose from you. He hides it for you. And when you are ready to obey it, he reveals it. Now that purpose has been established. Another question rises naturally from it. Because once you know why you are here, your mind begins to ask, do I have what it takes? And that leads us directly to the next question, the one that determines whether purpose will remain a dream or become a reality. Now that purpose has been established, the next question rises naturally and powerfully from within the human spirit. Once a person discovers why they are here, they immediately begin to ask, what can I do? Write it down. This is the question of potential. And potential is the hidden ability, the dormant capacity, the undiscovered power locked inside a person, waiting for permission to be expressed. Let me say this plainly. Potential is not what you have done. Potential is what you are capable of doing but have not yet done. If you have already done it, it is no longer potential, it is performance. And the tragedy of life is not that people die with no success, but that they die with potential unfulfilled. Graveyards are filled with books never written, songs never sung, inventions never created, businesses never built, ministries never started, and solutions never offered to the world. Now, here is where culture has lied to us. We have been taught to measure potential by performance, by grades, by tests, by opinions, by evaluations, and by limited systems that were never designed to measure the full capacity of a human being. But let me say this with clarity. No human system has the authority or the ability to measure what God put inside you. Isaiah 55:9 says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. If your source is God, then your potential exceeds human measurement. Many of you are still living under the shadow of an exam you took years ago. Someone told you that you were average. Someone told you that you were slow. Someone told you that you were not artistic, not intelligent, not gifted, and you believed them. But hear me carefully today. No one who did not create you has the right to define your capacity. Psalm 139:14 says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderfully means complex, layered, multifaceted. You are more than you have been allowed to express. Let me introduce a principle that will free you. Everything God creates is created complete. God never creates anything empty. He never creates anything unfinished. Genesis 1 repeatedly says, and God saw that it was good. Good does not mean perfect looking. It means fully functional. When God released you into the earth, he did not release you lacking anything you would need to fulfill your assignment. 2 Peter 1-3 confirms this. His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness. Everything means everything. Now think about this. When a manufacturer produces a product, they do not sell it and then add parts later. Everything the product will ever need to function is already inside it. That is why they test it before releasing it, and that is why they put their name on it. In the same way God tested you before he released you into time. You did not begin when you were born. You arrived finished. And what you call potential is simply what has not yet been revealed. This is why potential is intimidating, because potential demands responsibility. When you discover what you can do, you lose excuses. When you discover your capacity, fear has no place to hide. And that is why many people prefer ignorance. It protects them from accountability. But God did not design you to live safe. He designed you to live significant. Let me say something very important. Potential is activated by obedience, not confidence. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You need to begin to become ready. Confidence grows as capacity is expressed. That is why God often calls people who feel inadequate. Moses said, I can't speak. God said, who made the mouth? Gideon said, I am the least. God said, go in this your might. Jeremiah said, I am too young. God said, before you were born, I ordained you. God never consults your fear when he assigns your purpose. Potential is also unlocked by use. Anything unused deteriorates. Muscles unused become weak. Minds unused become dull. Gifts unused become dormant. That is why Romans 12:6 says, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. Use activates potential. Sitting on gifts is disobedience. Burying talent is rebellion. Jesus made this clear in Matthew 25 when he rebuked the servant who hid his talent. The problem was not failure, the problem was inactivity. Now let me confront another lie. Many people believe potential is something mystical, something vague, something reserved for special people. That is not true. Potential is practical. It shows up in what you are drawn to, what irritates you, what you notice, what you solve naturally, what gives you energy instead of draining it. God reveals potential through passion. Passion is not emotion. Passion is direction. It points toward your assignment. However, potential without discipline becomes frustration. You can be gifted and still fail if you refuse to develop what God put inside you. Proverbs 18:16 says, a man's gift makes room for him, but a gift that is undeveloped remains locked in the room. Development requires time, humility, learning, correction, and perseverance. And many people quit too early because they expect instant manifestation instead of gradual mastery. Let me say this again so it settles in your spirit. You are not lacking ability. You are lacking alignment and use. God never commands what he has not already supplied. When he says go, the capacity to go is already inside you. When he says build, the ability to build is already present. When he says speak, the voice may shake, but the authority is there. So the real question is not, what can I do? The real question is, what am I willing to develop? Because development turns potential into performance, and performance turns purpose into impact. Now, once potential begins to awaken, another question becomes unavoidable. Because when you know who you are, where you are from, why you are here, and what you can do, your heart begins to look forward. It begins to ask about outcome, completion, fulfillment. And that leads us to the final question, the question that gives meaning to the journey. Now we come to the final question, the question that gives meaning to every step you take, every decision you make, and every sacrifice you endure. Once you know who you are, where you are from, why you are here, and what you can do, your spirit naturally asks, where am I going? Write it down. This is the question of destiny. And destiny is not a place you stumble into. Destiny is the inevitable destination of a life aligned with purpose. Destiny is not guesswork. Destiny is not luck. Destiny is not something you hope happens if things work out. Destiny is the full manifestation of what was decided before you were born. Isaiah 46:10 records God saying, I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Notice the language. God begins with the end. He does not improvise your future. He reveals it. Let me say something that will change how you see your life. Your future is not ahead of you. Your future is inside you. You did not come to earth to look for destiny. You came carrying destiny. The seed contains the tree. The end is hidden in the beginning. And time is simply the process by which what is inside you is revealed. That is why your dreams feel bigger than your current reality. You are not imagining things, you are remembering things. This is why God never shows you something that does not already exist. When he gives vision, he is not inventing, he is uncovering. He is allowing you to see what he already finished. Hebrews 11:3 says, what is seen was not made out of what was visible. In other words, the invisible precedes the visible. Destiny exists before manifestation. And when God shows you your future, he is not teasing you, he is inviting you to cooperate. Now understand this clearly. Destiny is not forced, it is fulfilled. You can resist it, you can delay it, you can detour from it, but you cannot destroy it. You can take destiny to the grave, but you cannot change it. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. Purpose does not negotiate with preference. Destiny will stand. And if you refuse to do it, it will haunt you. This is why people are miserable doing things they are not called to do. Destiny creates holy frustration. It will not allow you to be comfortable in disobedience. You may succeed temporarily, but you will never be satisfied permanently. Augustine said it best when he wrote, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. Rest comes from alignment, not achievement. Now let me clarify something. Destiny is not a single event. It is a journey of progressive revelation. You don't arrive at destiny overnight. You grow into it. That is why God often starts you small. Zechariah 4:10 says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. Small beginnings are not evidence of small destiny. They are evidence of preparation. God protects destiny through process. Many people want the end without the discipline. They want the throne without the cave, the crown without the wilderness, the authority without the training. But destiny demands maturity. Joseph saw himself on the throne before he ever entered the pit. But the pit, the prison, and the palace were all part of the same journey. Genesis 50:20 says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive. Destiny reframes your pain. Now hear this carefully. Destiny is not what you do. Destiny is who you become while doing what you were sent to do. God is not just interested in outcomes. He is interested in character. That is why time is necessary. That is why waiting is necessary. That is why endurance is necessary. Romans 8:29 says, we are predestined to be conformed to the image of his son. Destiny shapes you before it showcases you. This is also why you must never judge a person by their current season. You don't judge a seed by the ground it's in. You judge it by the tree it will become. Some of the greatest destinies are currently hidden in ordinary places. David was a shepherd when destiny found him. Esther was an orphan when destiny positioned her. Jesus was a carpenter when destiny matured him. What you are doing now may not look like where you are going, but it is preparing you for it. Let me say this slowly and clearly. Where you are is not who you are, and what you are doing is not where you are going. If what you are doing now is not what you saw when God spoke to you, then what you are doing now is temporary. Temporary seasons do not cancel permanent destiny. They serve it. So what should you do with destiny? You protect it. You feed it. You obey it. You stop apologizing for it. You stop explaining it to people who cannot see it. Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. Destiny may delay, but it will not deny itself. And now that we have walked through all 5 questions, identity, source, purpose, potential, and destiny, you can see how they form a single powerful system. A system designed by God to restore clarity, authority, and peace to your life. But before we conclude, we must now step back and see how these questions work together as one divine design. Because understanding the system is what keeps you from slipping back into confusion. Now let me bring everything together, because the greatest danger after receiving revelation is fragmentation. Truth must be understood as a system, not as isolated ideas. God never thinks in fragments, he thinks in wholes. And these 5 questions, identity, source, purpose, potential, and destiny, are not 5 separate lessons. They are one divine system designed to restore mankind back to original intent. When you remove one question, the system collapses. If you know your purpose but not your identity, pride will destroy you. If you know your identity but not your source, insecurity will limit you. If you know your purpose and potential but not your destiny, you will quit too early. God designed life to work like a machine, every part connected, every principle dependent on the other. Identity answers who you are. Source answers who owns you. Purpose answers why you exist. Potential answers what you are capable of. Destiny answers where you are headed. When these are aligned, life becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Confusion disappears. Anxiety weakens. Fear loses authority. Because confusion is not a sign of complexity, it is a sign of missing information. This is why Jesus' first message was not about sin, it was about the kingdom. Matthew 4:17 says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has arrived. Repent does not mean cry. It means change your mind. Change your thinking. Change your concept. Jesus was saying, your problem is not behavior. Your problem is ignorance of government. Once you understand the kingdom, behavior adjusts automatically. Religion focuses on what you should not do. The kingdom focuses on who you are supposed to be. Religion tries to control behavior from the outside. The kingdom transforms behavior from the inside. That is why Jesus never preached religion. He preached government. He preached citizenship. He preached dominion restored. Now hear this statement carefully. When purpose is clear, discipline becomes natural. You don't have to force discipline when you know where you are going. An athlete who sees the medal doesn't complain about training. A woman carrying a child doesn't complain about the weight. Vision makes sacrifice reasonable. Destiny gives pain meaning. This is why Satan fights purpose more than prayer. He fights identity more than church attendance. He fights destiny more than doctrine. Because if he can confuse who you are, he doesn't need to control what you do. Hosea 4:6 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not lack of prayer, not lack of fasting, lack of knowledge. Now let me say something that may shock you. God is not obligated to bless what he did not authorize. He only finances his purposes. That is why many people pray but see no provision. They're asking God to fund plans he never designed. Psalm 127:1 says, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. When you align with purpose, provision follows automatically. Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom, and all these things shall be added. Added, not chased. This is also why comparison is dangerous. When you compare yourself to others, you abandon your assignment. You cannot measure a fish by how well it climbs a tree. You cannot judge destiny by another person's timeline. Ecclesiastes 7:8 says, the end of a thing is better than its beginning. God is not impressed by speed. He is committed to completion. Now let me speak prophetically to your spirit. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are in process. And process is proof that God is still working. Philippians 1:6 says, he who began a good work in you will complete it. Completion is guaranteed when cooperation is present. So what must you do now? First, stop settling. Stop surviving when you were born to dominate. Stop existing when you were sent to influence. Stop living other people's expectations instead of God's intention. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation begins with truth. Second, return to God as your source. The manufacturer is the only one who understands the product. Psalm 16:11 says, you will show me the path of life. Paths are revealed to those who ask. Destiny is clarified in his presence. Third, commit to development. Purpose without preparation produces casualties. Destiny without discipline produces collapse. Luke 2:52 says Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and favor. Growth is required even for the Son of God. Fourth, protect your vision. Not everyone deserves access to your dream. Joseph learned that the hard way. Write it down, guard it, feed it, speak it only to those assigned to help it. Finally, live to finish, not just to start. Paul said in 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finishing is the goal. Completion is the reward. Rest comes after purpose is served. Let me close with this truth, and I want you to receive it deeply. The greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy in life is living and never discovering why you were alive. But today, ignorance has been challenged. Light has been released. Truth has been spoken, and responsibility now rests with you. You are not a mistake. You are not an accident. You are not late. You were sent. And when you align with why you were sent, nothing in hell can stop what heaven started. For of him, and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen.